Welcome to G-Man Gaming and Reviews. Alright, so this is going to be a continuation of our series of guides to the heroes of Sentinels of the Multiverse. The next hero that we will be doing is the Inhuman Tempest. Now, Tempest is an interesting character. He primarily is a damage dealer that generally deals damage to all non-hero targets, so he's very, very good in terms of dealing with villains that like to put lots of targets in play, especially villains that start with lots of targets in play. He's got a lot of cards that do a lot of damage to all the non-hero targets, so he's really, really good at getting rid of large volumes of targets. In fact, he may even be one of the best characters in the game for doing it, because he can do it with his base power, which is obviously buffable, and he's got a lot of things that help him increase his power. He even has a card that allows him to change the damage type that he does. So he's actually a really, really good damage dealer. But he's got some team support in terms of allowing the team to draw cards from their trash, as well as shielding them from damage, and as well as healing them. So he's kind of got some team support as well, and on top of that, he has a limited ability to destroy ongoing cards and environment cards. So he's one of the few damage dealers that actually has the ability to destroy environment and ongoing cards. Alright, so we're going to start with, as we do with all, so this is part 1. If you're listening to this on the podcast, there'll be essentially part 1 and part 3, because part 3 will be the guide to variants and where the character fits in a team. And if you're watching it on YouTube, it'll be part 1, part 2, part 3. Part 1 will be us going through the cards and his base power and tips on how to use them. Part 2 will be a playthrough, which will only be on YouTube, but I'll link it. If you're listening to this as a podcast, I'll link the YouTube video in the podcast notes, and there'll be chapters, so you can skip to the part 2 of the playthrough, so you don't have to listen to it again from the beginning. And then there'll be part 3, like I said, where we go through variants. So I'm going to go through his base power now and all the cards, and then we'll move over to the next part. So his base power is called Squall. Don't quote me on the pronunciation. But Tempest deals each non-hero target 1 projectile damage. Now, I think he's the only character in the game, apart from a variant of Ra, whose base power deals each non-hero target 1 projectile damage. So, pretty good base power, especially if there's lots of targets in play. Now, the next card of his is Aquatic Correspondence. It's a one-shot and allows him to draw 3 cards. So there's 2 of them in the deck, so helps him get cards in his hand. The next card is Ball Lightning, which is also a one-shot. There are only 2 of them in the deck, and Tempest deals 1 target 4 lightning damage, and you may destroy up to 2 ongoing cards. Now, normally, I don't play this card for the damage. I play this card for its ability to destroy ongoing cards. Normally, I will keep this card in my hand, because there's only 2 of them in the deck. So I will keep this card in my hand for the sole purpose of destroying ongoing cards. And if it does damage to the villain or to a target, it's good as well. But primarily, this card is for destroying ongoing cards, so that's what you want to do with it. The next card is Chain Lightning. Now, it's a one-shot. There's 3 of them in the deck, and it's Tempest deals 1 target 4 lightning damage. Tempest may deal a second target 3 lightning damage, and Tempest may deal a third target 2 lightning damage. So yeah, this is a pretty good card for spreading damage around, and it's a one-shot, and there's 3 of them in the deck. His next card is called Cleansing Downpour. It's an ongoing, and it's a power that each hero target regains 2 HP. This is actually pretty good to have, because 2 HP is quite a lot, especially if you combine it with characters that also heal, like Medico, or Arcane Adept, you can actually heal quite a bit of health if you've got multiple characters who are healing a turn. So one of the things that's great about this card is if he can't do damage for whatever reason, he can heal the team. So pretty good card. Only 2 of them in the deck. The next card is electrical. Obviously, Cleansing Downpour is what it was called. The card that heals each hero target for 2 HP, and it's an ongoing, but it's not limited. But there's no point in having more than 1 in the deck. For the most part, unless you've got another hero who's given him the ability to use an extra power in turn, in which case there is a good point to having both of them in the deck, both of them in play. The next card is Electrical Storm. It's an ongoing limited, and at the start of your turn, Tempest deals each non-hero target 1 lightning damage. So pretty good card to have, no disadvantage to having it. One thing that I did want to say is a lot of his cards deal damage to each non-hero target, so there are times when you don't want to use him. Like for instance, there's a villain called the Dreamer, where you can she's a villain target, but you actually don't want to kill her. Don't take him against her, because literally almost all of his cards do damage to all non-hero targets. The next card is called Elemental Subwave Inducer. It's an equipment limited. There's 2 of them in the deck. Now, at the start of your turn, select the damage type. All damage dealt by Tempest this turn is of that type. Reduce damage dealt to Tempest of that type by 1 until the start of your next turn. So this is not only good for changing the damage type that he does, which can actually be very useful, especially if you're playing against a villain who happens to be immune to a particular damage type. And it reduces the damage type dealt to that Tempest of that type by 1 turn. So if you combine it with his other card, Otherworldly Resilience, he can actually tank 2 damage per turn, which is actually pretty good. The next card is, and there was 2 of those Elemental Subwave Inducer cards in the deck. The next card is called Flash Flood. It's a 1-shot, and there's 2 of them in the deck, and it basically destroys up to 2 environment cards. So, like I said, want to keep this card in your hand and for when you need it. Because there are times when you want to get rid of environment cards. And especially if they're not targets as well. Because if they're targets, you can just do damage to them like regular targets. But if they're not, that's when this card comes in real handy. Or if it's a villain or if it's an environment target with a crap load of health, you just get rid of it. The next card is there's 2 of them in the deck. It's an equipment. And it's called Gene-Bound Shackles. And it's an equipment limited, so you can only have 1 of them in play. Increase damage dealt by Tempest to the villain target with the highest HP by 2. Pretty good card. Helps him do more damage. So yeah. The next card is called Grievous Hailstorm. It's an ongoing. There are 3 of them in the deck. And it's a power. And the Tempest deals each non-hero target 2 cold damage. So basically it replaces the base power, and it's probably better that it does cold damage as opposed to projectile damage, because there's a lot more targets there's a lot more villains and targets in the game that have resistance to projectile damage, but there's very few that have resistance to cold damage. So a good replacement of his base power. The next card is called Into the Stratosphere. There's 3 of them in the deck. It's a 1-shot, and it basically allows you to select 1 non-indestructible villain card in play, other than a character card, and put it on the top of the villain deck. Tempest deals the villain target with the highest HP 2 projectile damage. Now, this is an interesting card. Basically, it allows you to put a villain target on the top of the deck. So it has multiple uses. 1, you can actually use it to put a villain card that's not very dangerous on the top of the deck, so that when the villain gets to the next turn, he draws that card. You can also use it to get rid of a card if you don't have any ability to destroy ongoing cards, but you have the ability to manipulate the villain's deck. So if you're playing with which you always want to do, you always want to have at least one character who can manipulate the villain deck. If you don't have any cards that can get rid of ongoing cards, you can use this card to put the card on the top of the villain deck, and then use another character like Wraith or Pass, or the Visionary, the Dark Visionary variant, that has the ability to control the villain deck to basically get rid of the card. So if you are going to play as Tempest, you always want to put him in turn order before the characters that can manipulate the villain deck, so that when he uses this card and he puts that card on the top of he puts that villain card on the top of the villain deck, the next hero can get rid of it straight away. This card actually used to work with indestructible cards, and it used to be one of the few ways to get rid of it, I believe, but they changed it to say select one non-indestructible villain card. So still a really, really good card. But like I said, this is the reason why you want Tempest to go before the villain, the heroes that can control the villain deck. The next card is Lightning Slash. It's a one-shot, and Tempest deals one target 5 lightning damage. So pretty good card, straightforward. Yeah. Now the next card is called Localized Hurricane. It's a ongoing. It's not limited, and there are only 2 of them in the deck, but you kind of would never want to have 2 of them in play at once. So it increases damage dealt by Tempest by 1, but it also has 2 powers. The first one is Tempest deals up to 2 targets 3 projectile damage each, and you may draw 2 cards. And the second power allows you to basically destroy this card. Now, this card is pretty good. One, because of its ability to allow you to draw 2 cards, which is great. Drawing 2 cards is a lot, but 2, it does 3 damage. Now, you probably want to get this card in play after you've got a hero who's set up to tank, so that way the damage goes to a different character, and this card doesn't apply because it only applies to Tempest. So if the damage gets redirected from Tempest to somebody else, that other target doesn't take the extra 1 damage from this card. So a good card to have in play. But you want to make sure that when you have it in play, you've got someone else tanking damage for Tempest, so that he doesn't have to suffer the extra damage. And the next card is called Otherworldly Resilience that I mentioned earlier. It's an ongoing limited, and it basically reduces damage dealt to Tempest by 1. Pretty straightforward. The next card is a one-shot. There's 3 of them. Oh, and there's 3 of the Otherworldly Resilience cards in the deck. So, coming back to the next card, which is called Reclaim from the Deep. It is a one-shot, and each player may take a card from their trash and put it on top of their hero deck, and you may draw a card. This is actually really, really good. Like, there are times when allowing a hero to draw a card from their trash and put it on the top of their hero deck is actually really good. Especially if it's a card that, like Hucker's Ground Pound or Legacy's Takedown, basically allows you to use it again on the turn after the current turn. So, very, very good card. But also the reason why you kind of want to have Tempest first in the turn order, so that they draw the card straight after. But yeah, great card. The next card is Shielding Winds. It's an ongoing limited. There are 3 of them in the deck, and whenever a hero target would be dealt 5 or more damage from a single source, reduce that damage by 2. This is actually really, really good. And it actually allows not just this character, but it actually allows not other characters to benefit from it, but it also really benefits Tempest. So, for example, if you've got Elemental Subwave Inducer in play, right, and you're using it to reduce damage by 1 of a particular type, then you've got otherworldly resilience in play, he could potentially be tanking 2 damage. So now he's resistant to 2 damage. If you combine it with shielding winds, if he was to take 5 damage, now he only takes 1. -2 from the shielding winds, which takes it down to 3, and then -2 from elemental subwave inducer and otherworldly resilience. So it actually allows him to tank damage really, really well. Now, unlike other tanks, he can't really direct the damage to himself from other targets, but still makes him pretty reliable. And the last card in his deck is called Vicious Cyclone. It's an ongoing limited. Play this card next to a target. There's 2 of them in the deck. And at the start of your turn, discard up to 3 cards. Tempest deals that target 1 projectile damage for each card discarded. So, it's a pretty decent card, but only if you've got crap loads of cards in your hand. Especially cards that, like a lot of cards that you've already got in play that you just don't need. But I probably wouldn't play this first. I would probably play his other cards before playing this. Like, for instance, if you're using Localized Hurricane to get lots of cards in your hand, and then you play this card, then it's really, really good. Also, you kind of want to make sure that when you're using it, you've got other characters that are buffing the damage, so that dealing 1 damage is fine, but dealing 3 per each card you discard is actually really good. So, that was all of the Tempest cards. So, if you're listening to this on a podcast, we're going to move on to part 3 where we discuss variants and team building. If you're watching this on YouTube, we're going to move on to part 2 where we actually show you a playthrough of Tempest, providing tips on how to play him. So, transitioning now. Welcome to G-Man Gaming and Reviews. Alright, so this is going to be our part 2 of our gameplay guide for Tempest. So we're going to take these 3 characters. Use this one. We'll pick a villain that likes to put targets in play. Yeah, let's try Omnitron. Now, this interpolation beam is actually quite rough because it deals you 1 damage every single time that every single time you draw a card. So we're gonna draw a card for him because he's not gonna take the damage. We're going to use Lightning Slash to deal damage. And then we will use this power. So the reason I use Lightning Slash is because it's actually doing 1+ damage. So I won't bother going into the details of this villain because this is all about demonstrating for Tempest. But if you see, he's going to do 2 damage to them. So you start to see with damage buffs how powerful this character becomes. Ooh, that's the card that I didn't want to come in play. That's not good to have drawn that card on the first deck. Well, this one's pretty rough as well. So we're going to take lead from the front. Use Galvanize. Yeah, we'll draw the card. So he's not going to take damage. We will use Shielding Winds to do extra damage. So now he's actually doing an extra 4 damage to the villain target because of, yeah, he's going to draw a card. We're going to redirect that 1 damage to Legacy, and it doesn't do him any damage. We're going to use this. Yeah. Gonna get rid of Inventory Barrage. We'll get rid of Throwing Knives because we don't need to have it twice. I'm gonna use this. Now this is irreducible. You'll see it says here irreducible, so there's no point. He's not going to be able to defend against it. Ooh, he's Leviathan's nemesis. That's interesting. I didn't know that he was Leviathan's nemesis. Oh, this couldn't have been worse. Now Tempest can't deal any damage, which is pretty much what he's supposed to do. Oh, that couldn't have been worse. That's like one of his worst cards. This is really horrible. That's pretty bad. Got to get rid of this card. This is the reason why. Yes, I'll have him draw a card. Wait, he can't do any damage. So I might as well... We'll just play this. Yes, I want to draw a card. Yes, got Otherworldly Resilience. Now, all these villain targets, it's Omnitron who deals the damage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play this card. And send it to him. So that he can't deal damage. Oh, they all get destroyed. Oh. I can't believe how bad this is going for me. Oh. Not that good. That's just horrible. I've really been set back here. So he's lost all his damage dealing cards. Okay, we got lead from the front. Okay, we're going to play Otherworldly Resilience to help him stay alive. And we're going to use this card to draw this. We've got Utility Belt. So we're going to go like this. To have a look at the top two cards. Yeah, these are fine. I wish I had this card in play earlier so I could have stopped Normally this deck is actually pretty good. I'm going to use this to draw an extra card. Gonna take that out. Actually, no, we're not gonna take that out. We're gonna do the damage to... This card would have been good to play before. So this is going to be taken out. This takes 3 damage at the start of the turn. So we're going to use... Now, I want to get rid of this card. So we're going to use Into the Stratosphere to put this on the top of the deck. And then we're going to use this. Ooh, that kind of sucks. So I'm going to use Mega Computer. Oh, I gotta get that card out of play. Actually, instead of doing that, I'm actually going to play this. He's currently immune to projectile damage, which is kind of annoying. There's kind of no point in playing that card. Might as well use the trust fund to try to get the other infantry, the infrared eyepiece, into play. So we'll get rid of that. And get rid of that. Finally, we got Flash Flood. So we can get rid of some of those environment cards. Especially want to get rid of the Marian Lightning Dome because it's reducing the damage. I won't kill that. Take melee. So we're going to use Flash Flood to get rid of this and get rid of this. I'm going to play this card. Get rid of that. So normally you actually don't want to get rid of these storm speakers. But since I've got Tempest, I've got to do damage to them anyway, so he's immune to melee damage, okay. So we will play this card. And we will use it to play. Use it to play Micro Targeter. Put it in play. We use this. Yeah, we'll just get rid of that. Ooh, got to get rid of that Electro Pulse device. This is going to do a lot of damage. It deals each hero target X lightning damage where X is the... Yeah, you got to get rid of this card fast. Crap, that's not good. Ooh, that couldn't have been better. That couldn't have come at a better time. So you start to see how Tempest is very, very useful for dealing against... I specifically chose Omnitron X because Omnitron X likes to put a lot of characters in play. So... Now... I'll have him pick... hang on, is he... He's immune to lightning damage, so... Now... because I'm playing Omnitron X and he's got this... adaptive plating subroutine. Basically, he becomes immune to the damage immune to the type of damage that he was previously dealt. So he's currently immune to lightning damage because of the fact that he was dealt lightning damage before. So kind of got to make him immune to, got to make him do some other type of damage in order for the damage to get through. So we're just going to choose energy. So we're going to go... Ooh, I've got to decide between shielding winds. Now we'll play this. We deal crap loads of damage. And then we play this. Okay, now we're only going to take 2 damage each. Or actually probably less than that. So that's why when that card comes into play, you've got to get rid of it. But you start to see how really good Tempest is at taking... Now... I'm going to have her use this. You always want her using this card when it's in play. Probably Stunbolt. Put it in play. Put another card in play. We will go Razor Ordnance. Ooh, yeah, we definitely don't want to put this card on the top of the deck, so we'll pick that one. I'll go into this later when I do the Wraith guide. But Wraith is one of the few characters in this game that is dedicated to... She can do a lot of other things, like she can do damage as well, but she's one of the few characters in the game that has the ability to provide permanent... whatchamacallit... Where's the throwing knives? Do I not have throwing knives? I should. I don't have throwing knives. That doesn't make... Oh, no, I've only got Stunbolt. Well, that's annoying, but I gotta take this out, so... So you start to see how important a tank is, and how important a damage dealer is, and how important a deck control character is. We could... How much... Okay, how much damage has been done to Omnitron? 3 damage. Yeah, gonna use this. Well, he's not going to be able to do damage to him now. I'm going to use the grappling hook to get rid of the adaptive subroutine. So we're going to use this to... We definitely do not want this card ending up in play, so we'll take this one. And we're going to use this to deal damage. No! Oh, that couldn't have come at a worse time. But he's almost dead, so hopefully... Oh, that was rough, because she had so many equipment cards in play. Alright, I'm going to play Takedown. So villain cards can't be played. She's pretty much done for. I think I'm probably going to lose this. We've got to take him out quickly. We've just won, but this was very, very dangerous. And she's pretty much... Well, the annoying thing is that this card is going to reduce the damage by 1, so... Oh. We just won this. I can't believe how close this actually got. Omnitron can be difficult, but... Oh, dear God. Now we've got to destroy a card. Destroy Electrical Storm. This is how you play as Tempest. This wasn't the best game. This shouldn't have been this hard, but it just goes to show you that even a complexity 2 villain, if they just happen to get certain cards, they can just completely ruin you. So this is the end of part 2 of our playthrough of Tempest. What we're going to do now is we're going to transition to part 3, which was variants and where does Tempest sit in a team. So stay tuned for part 3, transitioning now. Welcome back to G-Man Gaming and Reviews. Alright, so this is going to be part 3 of our guide to Tempest. So this will focus on variants and team building tips. I sort of covered team building tips in the part 1, but so we'll go through his variants. So the first variant is called, seems to be just called Tempest. Now, this variant of Tempest has a power where it's called Sacrifice, where you destroy one of your cards, and if you do, draw 3 cards. Now, this variant is somewhat interesting. The ability to draw 3 cards is actually quite good. but you're destroying one of your cards in the process. So, Tempest has a lot of limited cards that you really can only put one in the deck. So, if you happen to have multiple copies of the same card, I can see this being very worthwhile. Because, you just destroy the one copy of the card, draw 3 cards, and then you can play that same card the next turn. But that being said, and unlike other abilities, you have to destroy one of the cards in order to draw 3 cards, right? So, it is pretty good, but I'm not sure if I would take it over the base variant, because you have to destroy one of your cards to use it. So you have to destroy one of your cards in order to make use of it. So generally, destroying your own cards is not a good idea. But I think I will do some testing to see if you can destroy other characters' cards. It would be good, but because it says destroy one of your cards, not really that useful. At the beginning, just to get extra cards in play, very, very useful. But after you get, like, for instance, what's the card called? Grievous Hailstorm into play, you're probably going to be wanting to use that power. As opposed, or you're even better using Cleansing Downpour than using that power. The next one is Prime Warden's Tempest. And he has an Arc of Power ability. It's called Arc of Power. And it's power where it allows you to play up to 3 cards. Each time you play a card this way, the environment deals Tempest 3 lightning damage. Now, by itself, it's probably not a good idea. Because, if you play 3 cards, that's 9 damage. That's a lot of damage. But I can see when it would be useful to use this. Tempest has abilities to reduce the damage that he takes. So, for instance, if you use Elemental Subwave Inducer and you change the type to Lightning, he'll take -1 damage, so now he only takes 2 damage. And if you combine it with Otherworldly Resilience, now he's only taking 1 damage. So as opposed to taking 3 damage per extra card he plays, now he's taking only 1. So I can see a use for this. Like there can be times when you've just got to get rid of a whole bunch of targets or cards, and the ability to be able to play up to 3 cards in addition to the other card that you play is very, very powerful. But you don't want to be using this unless you're mitigating the damage in some way. A really good example of a character to take this variant with is the Sentinels, right? Because the Sentinels have an ability to tank damage that goes to hero targets, including if it's the environment, including if it's themselves. In fact, they are one of the few, I think they're the only tank in the game that can redirect damage that's going to the hero targets from any source to themselves. So if you're going to take this variant, you're probably going to want to take the Sentinels, and you're probably going to want to set them up with their ability to tank so that the damage goes to them rather than going to Tempest. But like I said, if you have Elemental Subwave Inducer in play and Otherworldly Resilience, it's actually still pretty good. Even if you're taking 1 damage per card you play, that's still okay. That's not bad. But then again, you also want to, in order to make up for it, you would want to be getting lots of cards in play. So you would probably want to have Localized Hurricane in play to draw the extra cards. So you would probably be spending turns drawing cards, and then you would have one big turn when you're playing a whole bunch of cards. But I can see a use to this variant. I can definitely see a use to this variant. You just need to make sure that you're tanking, that you've got the Sentinels to tank the damage, or that you've got his other 2 cards in play to mitigate the damage. So the last variant is Extreme Prime Warden's Tempest. And the power is called Thunderstruck. And Tempest it's a power. Tempest deals one target 1 lightning damage. A non-character target dealt damage this way loses any end of turn effects on its card until the start of Tempest's next turn. This can actually be really, really good. Okay? Because most of the villain targets in this game basically have an ability that happens at the end of the turn. So this power can basically make it so that one villain target doesn't do damage. Now, there are certain villain targets in this game that are just really nasty, that have got crap loads of life and that do damage to each character. So the ability to shut one of them off is actually really, really useful. And it means that this power is actually going to be useful even when you have Grievous Hailstorm in play, because there might be a time when you need to shut down the effect of one really powerful target as opposed to doing damage to multiple non-hero targets. So I can see this variant actually replacing the base variant. But it's sort of like, I think this variant would be better in situations where you're playing against a villain. Well, actually, it doesn't work against a villain. But if you're playing against a villain character that likes to put very powerful targets into play. But yes, I can definitely see a use for this one. It's way more useful than the other one that gets you to draw 3 cards if you destroy one of your cards. But yeah, you sort of got to decide whether you want to use this one or the base variant. But yeah, interesting variant, this one. Okay, so that's all the variants covered. So where does Tempest fit in a team? Well, I've already covered this, but to an extent. But one, he's extremely good at dealing damage to multiple targets. Okay? That's what he's really good at doing. Yes, he's got cards that can do a lot of damage to a single target, but primarily, he's all about dealing damage to multiple targets, right? So he's really, really useful in scenarios where he has to deal damage to multiple targets. He's also quite self-sufficient. He doesn't really need a lot of help to... he doesn't really need a lot of help to do what he wants to do. And he's also got some team support in terms of the Shielding Winds cards, where he can reduce like large sources. He can reduce damage of 5 by 2, and he allows the team to be able to draw cards from their trash. So, but like I said, he's mainly a damage dealer who's all about doing damage to multiple targets, but he's also able to tank for himself. So, yeah, I suppose, like I said, he's a damage dealer. Just be aware that, unlike other damage dealers, he actually has cards that do different damage types, and he also has the ability to change his damage type. So he's somewhat more of a versatile damage dealer than, say, Ra would be, because Ra only does fire damage for the most part. So if you end up in a situation where the villain is immune to fire damage, or there's a target that's immune to fire damage, Ra can't do anything about that. For the most part. But Tempest not only has powers that do different types, he also has the ability to change the type of damage that he does. So he's actually a much more versatile damage dealer than, say, Ra is. But Ra is better at dealing damage to one target, whereas Tempest is better at dealing damage to multiple targets. So this was the end of our Tempest guide. So if you were listening to this on podcast, please rate it 5 stars if you want to. And if you're watching it on YouTube, please like and subscribe. If you have any questions, just put them in the comments, and I'll be happy to answer them, or maybe even do a follow-up guide answering those questions depending on how many of them there are. So thanks for watching. This was G-Man Gaming and Reviews, and please like and subscribe, and thanks for watching. Alright, bye!